And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we are talking about if the Chicago Bulls should extend Josh Giddey and what the front office should do this summer to help this roster. And so, before we go ahead and jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so, in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So, make sure you hit that subscribe, you hit that like button, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the content today. And so we're talking about Josh Giddey and should the Chicago Bulls give Josh Giddey a contract extension. And so I definitely think that the Chicago Bulls should give Josh Giddey a contract extension. We're going to be talking about why. We're going to talk about the numbers and what the front office should do to help out Josh Giddey and the rest of the players here. And so, let's start with just what Josh Giddey has done and why I think he's definitely deserving of a contract extension here with the Chicago Bulls. And so let's start with the fact that he definitely showed growth as a leader. I think that when Zach LaVine was moved, you could see that Josh Giddey became even more assertive. I think that, he was a guy that looked to get the basketball to his teammates first. And so I think a lot of times in the games, what I was very impressed with him is that he would get everybody else involved first. He would get the rebounds and things like that. And then he would really turn it on as a scorer. And so he's a guy that just led by example by going out there, doing those little things like that. And it's something that I think really sparked the Chicago Bulls at the start of games, along with Coby White and others and what they did. But definitely you see the growth as a leader. And I think he also showed that he had a little bit more voice, I think, down the stretch of the season, because I love the fact that he went out there and he got a technical. I think that is something that this team is going to need, as they continue to hopefully build out to be a contender again. You need to have a guy that is a leader. And so I think you have that with not only Josh Giddey, Coby White. I think that Modest Buzelis is going to get there as well. But this is what you're looking for. You're looking for a young leader. And so that's point number one, why the Chicago Bulls need to, I think, extend him. You get a leader. Next up, I love the fact that with Josh Giddey, he actually goes out and he does what he says, because I'm thinking back to the start of training camp this last season when he said, look, I got to get better as a defender. Not saying I'm going to be elite, but he took steps this season to become a better defender. Was it elite defense? No, it's not ever going to be, but the effort at the end of the year was terrific. And really before the end of the year, I love how he really just turned on the switch, especially after going through a difficult stretch, especially that Cleveland Cavaliers game. I can think about that. And his response, that told me everything that I needed to know about Josh Giddey. The fact that he came back from that moment and then he grew from that. That is what you want out of your leader. You want a guy that he can go through a tough time. He can come out of it even better. And so Josh Giddey did that. And I think about his end of the season press conference where he said, look, he was asked, like, are you the player from the start of the season? Are you the player at the back half of the season? He says, great question. And he said he's the player at the end of the season. And so I do believe that. I love the fact that he's put that out there. So he's with all the smoke, so to speak, and the pressure. And so I love that about Josh Giddey. And so that is number two, why I would go ahead and I would extend him. I do believe in his play. I believe in what he's saying. And then next up, look, I think that the numbers are clear for Josh Giddey, because his numbers improved, and we'll talk about what he did, post All-Star break, but just looking at just the season numbers, you see a player that definitely stepped it up this season. And so we'll bring that up. And as you can see, the numbers, look, they never lie. And so you see that his points went up slightly from a season ago. We know he had the down season, but came back 14.6 points. You love that. And then this is where you really love it. We just talked about the defense. You see that he had a career high in assists. So I talked about the effort level, and that's all you want. And you see that, look, he's rewarded for that effort. It shows in the numbers. The block shots were consistent, even though it felt like it was more at times. But then this is huge. You see the assist at 7.2. And this is another reason why I think that you're feeling comfortable extending him, because you now have him in a role where he's the lead guard. There's nobody else there that's competing. Him and Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu and everybody else have shown that they can really play alongside of each other. So I could see that number going up. And then next, the rebound totals. Look, we know that between assists and rebounds, that is Josh Giddey and his superpower. And so for him to go up in both of those categories, that is huge. So I definitely feel comfortable with that. Obviously, we want to see some more. But again, I do believe in the sample size that we saw. I think we're going to see some more next season. And then when you start to get into the percentages, I think that was huge as well. Look, I know that there was a slight dip from the free throw percentage here, but I just thought that is something that's going to go up. I loved how he attacked at the end of the year and just used his physicality to not only get layups, but also get the and one. So I could see that going up. And this was big time when you talk about the 3-point percentage to 37.8%. That is huge. I think that anytime that Josh Giddey can shoot anywhere from 35 and up, which I think he can. He's got the confidence. You're going to open up the floor. You could see that defenses had to extend out on him. They weren't able to sag off. It opened up the floor more, and that was big time. And then with the field goal percentage, it was right there, 46.5. That is solid. And then you love, again, the games played. That is huge when you're talking about an extension. When you're looking at a player that plays in 70 contests, that is what you're looking for out of 82 games. And we know as Chicago Bulls fans, the tough times that we've had with players that have been injured. And so that is another reason why I'm extending him. You see the numbers, you see the durability, you see the things that he does well is going up for you. So you have to go out and extend him. Next up, look, I think when you look at the All-Star numbers, that was huge because after the All-Star break, 21.2 points, 10.7 rebounds, 9.3 assists, almost a triple-double. And I think he can average that. I do think he can average that. I think one of the things he's going to have to work on clearly is just going to have to cut down the turnovers. Defensively, he's going to have to continue to get better and refine that. But I love how the game is slowing down for him because now, he's got that floater, but he's also doing it in a way where once he gets under the 3-point line, he knows how to now get a defender onto his back, and he doesn't necessarily have to go in for the score. He can keep that defender on his back and then find a way to get it to another teammate. So I think the game is starting to slow down, so I could see the numbers definitely going up there. And so I think that you do extend him. I think that, look, if he reportedly wants $30 million for 5 years, 150, I think you go out there and you give it to him. And most people would say, oh, man, they're worried about that. I think that you should be more worried about the front office, really. I think that that's where the real pressure is. And I think that leads me to the next point where the Chicago Bulls front office, they're going to need to step up because if you're getting Josh Giddey, you understand what type of player he is. You should understand what type of player that you have on your roster, period. I don't care if it's Coby White, Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, Jalen Smith, whoever. You need to understand how the pieces go together, which we probably question that with the front office with some of the things that they do and moves that they make. But you need to go out now. You need to find defenders. You need to find players that are going to be able to knock down 3-point shots and things like that. Like this front office cannot afford to do what they did with the Zach LaVine situation. And I think that this is why, as Chicago Bulls fans, just really across, just kind of Chicago Bulls fans, you feel just like, man, do you want to give him the money because you saw what happened with Zach LaVine? But the bottom line there is, yes, I know he got injured. And yes, I love Zach LaVine. I love his play and everything else. But I think that you have to factor in, did the front office do enough to build around that situation? And I honestly think that they did not. And so this is a chance where they can fix, what happened here in the past, and you can go out and you can build around these players. And so you just have to be smart. That's why I think that if you give them the money, that's fine, but you have got to be proactive as a front office to make things work. And so that means, look, if you're going to keep Coby White, you understand what he can and he cannot do, and you need to build around that. This is another player that we're going to talk about later on another video that has shown that he can step up into multiple roles. And he showed that, look, if you give him more usage rate as a scorer, he will absolutely figure it out. And he can also, like Giddey, be a playmaker and shows that he can be an impact player. And so this is where your front office, you're trusting that they are going to take care of these players and get what they need around them to take this franchise in the right direction. And then that leads me to the last point here. When you're talking about that, you're going to have to take care of business in the draft, but you're also now going to have to make some smart free agent pickups and things like that. Yes, the Chicago Bulls clearly want to make a splash in free agency, but it needs to be something that fits with your timeline. You clearly don't want to go out, and give up draft capital, for aging stars and things like that, and really minimize your timeline. I think that with what AK has said, he wants to go with younger players that maybe have shown some success, haven't really taken off in the league. And I think that you still can build that out along with, finding players in the draft. And so a couple players that come to mind that might be available that the Chicago Bulls might want to take a chance on, especially if they're looking for some size, and we're kind of getting away from the massive guards that we have here on this roster. Then you can think about a player like, Jabari Walker. Like, I think he's a player that maybe the Chicago Bulls might want to take a chance on, a forward for the Portland Trailblazers. I believe he's going to be a free agent, and not saying that they would, but I'm just saying this is an example of a young, forward that maybe they just need a change in scenery. They get there with Josh Giddey, that backcourt, it opens up things for them. And we know that this team needs to get bigger on the front line. And another player maybe that you can start to consider too is a Jake LaRavia, right? Like, he's going to be a free agent as well. You're looking at a guy that can knock down the shot. Perhaps he can use his size and things like that. Again, it's all about getting pieces that go along with these main pieces that you have. You're trying to build through the draft that way, but you're getting younger and you're growing. And that's the whole point here. And so hopefully, this front office is able to, just take the appropriate steps. But I do think that you absolutely go out there and you pay Josh Giddey his money. So anyway, you let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do the Chicago Bulls go out and pay Josh Giddey the $30 million for the 5 years, if that's what he wants? We honestly don't know because we haven't heard it from Josh Giddey. It's just speculation. Next, what do you think here with the front office? Do you agree with me here in the sense that the front office, if they are going to make a signing or take care of Josh Giddey and say Coby White, who is going to be up for an extension as well at some point, like, do you take care of both of these players and now you just have to focus more so on what you're doing in free agency? Even if it's little small gains here in free agency, I think that this is something the Bulls should definitely explore. And then lastly, what are you thinking here as far as just going back to that Zach LaVine situation? I think that if the Bulls are proactive in the front office and they step up, they can certainly avoid, going out there, getting a star on contract, and then you never see him move forward with the team because you never properly built around them. And so I think that that's just really the key point that I want to drive home. The front office has to step it up. So let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments. And look, as we always say, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.